ottaisin. Hallå väki och hav. Hän on neidosten joukossa kaunihin. Hallå väki och hav. Suukon kirsikka silmät niin mustat kuin yö. Ja ne loisti kuin tuikkiva tähtien työ.
Welcome to another adventure of Gloucester Bookies. Today is a special edition in which we will mostly be talking about the local Sawyer Free Library, which is, to the surprise of many of our listeners, still in operation, open each day for business. And I'll have people talk about that, including probably a story. But in any case, around me, I am surrounded by librarians. Around me, I'd like people to introduce themselves to the audience today.
Hi, my name is Connor Williamson. I am a library assistant. I've been with Sawyer Free for about 6 months, and I'm happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Meg O'Neill. I'm a community librarian, and I've been here for about 2 years.
My name is John Pryber. I'm a former Sawyer Free Library employee who has been connected with the library since the 1950s as a child user. And I'm very happy to be here too.
There it is.
Ray Hildenen, a historian and also academic librarian. And I don't think I go quite as far back to the 50s at Sawyer Free Library, but definitely in the 60s. And John was one of the people who really introduced me to the library and its collection. So I'm glad to be here also.
And I'm forced to be here, so I'm enjoying it. I have, this is Wayne Soini, and all I am is a conspicuous consumer of the library services. I'm constantly in need of books and constantly there. When I arrive, I want to read the newspapers, which they have, magazines, which they have. You don't have to subscribe. You can go there and read the Globe every day if you want for nothing, or the Atlantic, if that's what you read, the Atlantic magazine, New York Times Book Review. Many of these things that I like to do, I don't have to buy them or subscribe. I can go to the library. In addition, I don't have to go to the library. Meg knows, and we'll tell you more about it. This is a home delivery. You can be at home and ask for, request, order a book or that you'd like. You don't have to go to the library to get it. People will bring it to you. And when you're done with it, I understand they'll even pick it up, bring it back.
Absolutely, Wayne.
So there's the answer.
Right, we'll meet you where you are.
So there it is. I'm going to suggest, in order of seniority, the best story, the oldest story, the longest continuous connection with the library is embodied by, beside me here, of John Prybot. And John Prybot, importantly, significantly for his story, was in North Gloucester, such as Lanesville, and it matters for the story about his connection with the Sawyer Free Library in the 1950s. John, would you please tell us what's your connection, your earliest connections with the Sawyer Free Library?
My earliest connection with the Sawyer Free Library began with our weekly Saturday trip into the big city from Lanesville. Gloucester was quite a different world from Lanesville. We were a community intact in itself with all the things needed for our regular life, but Saturday meant going to town to get things which were not available in Lanesville, and among those resources was the library. My mother was very fond of books and made sure that the library was one of our stops in the city, and at that time we used the children's library, the Sawyer Free Library Children's Library. But during the week, we had the added access to a one afternoon a week library in our neighborhood school, which was the Lane School. And on Tuesday afternoons, two librarians from Sawyer Free Library would drive out and opened that library, which is in one of the classrooms, and the books were kept in cupboards there, and they were unlocked and opened, and the public came in after school ended for the day and had the pleasure of being able to have books and periodicals and enjoy those services right in their own community. But aside from that, everything was here in town in the Sawyer Free Library, and I really became, books were a resource to me that opened different worlds that I had no idea even existed. And as a result, as a sophomore in high school, that was 1962, I was able to get a position within the library as a page, reshelving books, return books. And there I would be in the afternoons after leaving the high school, and I would spend the afternoon in the library serving the public and furthering my own interest in all that the library had to offer. So that was an incredible enrichment as well as a job opportunity for me. And it really made a difference in my life. It was a foundation stone that I continuously am grateful for, and my appreciation is registered in the library. By having retired 2 years ago, I continue to use the library on a regular basis, and I mean regular, as the staff here present can witness to. And it's a use of appreciation and respect and esteem that I hold for the library and the people who serve the library, as is represented here.
Thank you, John. Right back at you.
Well, I'm afraid my story is very similar to John's, and I do think it was John who got me interested in. He got me my job, I believe, as a page. Also, I was a sophomore, but 2 years later than John in 1964. And like him, I used to use the library at Lane School, and a librarian there, Jane Crowell. She was so nice to me, and she used to allow me to go over the limit.
We had
you only was it 4 maybe?
Yes.
And she used to give me 6, and then I told her I was running out, and so she would allow me to write down the names of books that I wanted her to bring the next week. And she told me, but don't tell anybody else that I'm doing this. She said, and if they're late, I won't let you do this again. So I used to look forward to Tuesday afternoons. However, she did scold me once because I would get to the Lane School, but then I wanted to go to the beach. So I carried a beach bag and I put the books in there, and then I would read them at the beach. And those days, that was a no-no. The sand. And she knew it, and she scolded me the next time I brought them in.
We still have that. We still have the sand.
Really? Really?
But we no longer have the cap. It's now as many as you can carry.
Okay. So now, as a depository of information, libraries are unimpeachable. However, I did have one anecdote. I know Wayne likes to hear anecdotes. So one day, I had often wondered who A. Pyatt Andrews was, for whom the bridge is named. And I didn't know much about him. And I used to ask people, this was when I was in junior high and in high school, and they didn't know much either. Well, one day when I was working, one of the librarians, I think it was Margaret Goodnow, said, Raymond, do you know who that is over there? And I said, no. She said, that's A. Pyatt Andrews, for whom the bridge is named. Well, and she said, he's with John Hayes Hammond, the inventor. Okay. Well, the thing is, and I perpetrated this error. That was not A. Pyatt Andrews. He had been dead for a long time. But I used to tell people that I knew him from Sawyer Free Library, which was
way back.
Totally false. Bogus. So, but through the library, I did get to work in the Hammond Library, the personal library of John Hayes Hammond. In about 1966, one summer I went over. Did you ever go
Under
over there
Miss
too?
Conover, Miss Charlotte Conover, who was the
Yes.
head librarian.
Yes,
at the
Charlotte
time.
Conover.
And she assigned us to assisting her to collect the books that he had bequeathed the library
Yes.
as a gift.
Yes.
And we had to go through the entire
Yes.
Hammond building and so-called castle and empty closet after
A
closet
closet.
of books in the most hidden little
Hidden little
recesses
alcoves
of
the-
musty, dark rooms. It was like a scary operation
was.
because it was a spooky place under any circumstances. And to go into these, climb stairs and get into rooms that had just been off limits
Off
to
limits.
everyone.
They were actually off
And
limits.
then box and collect the books and then transport them to the library. And it was like an endless task that occupied
It
us
was.
most of a summer. I remember.
And I remember one of the librarians asking Charlotte, "Why are you sending John and Raymond over there? They're not librarians." And she went like this, "They'll do a good job." She said, "They
We did
know
the
what
heavy
they're doing."
work.
And because technically we were going to lift the books,
Yeah.
but I actually started, I started putting, I put them in 2 trucks.
Yeah.
One for books I thought the library should keep, and one for the ones that they shouldn't keep.
Yeah.
And then there was also some that we were going to go to the Archdiocese of Boston. So I had 3. And when they saw that I could do this, I didn't have to lift the books anymore. I could just sort them. But then I've already told you one sort of error that I fell into at the library by thinking A. Pyatt Andrews was there. In the bathroom, in a hidden bathroom of the Hammond Museum, I found a hidden store of exotic erotica.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the
In
librarian...
abundance. In
Yes,
abundance.
and they were horrified. "You can't look at those. Get out of there. How did you find these?" Because they didn't even, no one knew that they existed. No one living.
We uncovered a Pandora's box.
Yes, yes.
Hey,
So,
all right.
how's that
Thank
for an
you for that
anecdote,
one.
Wayne?
We can't top that one.
This is
But
a
I'm gonna-
treasure of
I'm gonna
hidden knowledge
This is
now brought to light.
wonderful nostalgia. And I'm not going to ask about erotica in the library. Tell me about this present day, because some people don't know where the library is or if it's still open. I think Connor was the one speaking on that. Why don't you tell us, Connor, about your situation at the present? I'm in Gloucester, maybe new to Gloucester, but I want to connect with the library. Tell me about that.
So we are currently located at 21 Main Street, which is right above Mystery Train and right next to Vigilio's. I'm sure everyone in town knows where Vigilio's is. You have to know if you go by, you smell it every day.
And you hear it.
and
Or you hear it. And we operate mainly 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 to 7 Thursday, 9 to 5 Friday, and 10 to 5 Saturday. And with it, it's a limited collection. We have about 25% of our collection. Most of it is in storage, but we have a wonderful system called Comcat, and also a part of Noble, the North of Boston Library Exchange. So we can get pretty much any book that you want within reason, and everything's free. We have DVDs. I know, Wayne, we were talking earlier about how, libraries growing up, it was just books, but we have DVDs, we have video games that you can rent, we have...
And I'm at home and I don't have a computer. Tell us about that.
We have laptops that you can take out. We have mobile hotspots that you can take out. It's really a great resource, and even if we might not have something here, we can get it. There's so many great resources within our consortium that we are able to. We are lucky enough to have a very effective system where most books come within about 2 to 3 days, and the longer ones, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. But even that for a book, it's pretty good.
Yes.
And you can go quite far afield, too.
Well, today we got a book
Very
from San
impressive.
Francisco.
Very impressive. That's my own
And
experience.
it wasn't even erotica.
I actually had a question for you, which you brought up. How much access do you have to books that are not within the Noble system?
So we have we had two wonderful people, Sam and Joe, who are library assistants who currently kind of head the ILLs, interlibrary exchanges. And, just recently, they found a book on hydrogen cell batteries that someone needed for a class. They found this really odd one-off book that I was putting in the list because we have like a little list where you put it in. You put the name, the title, when it was done, and you hand it to them and you go, good luck. I hope you can find this. Out of my hands now. And you'd be surprised at how much they can find. They go from libraries all over. We just got one in today from San Francisco. They go far.
On that, in other words, if I'm at home and I do know my way around the computer, and I make an order, I order a book, the way it's done on the computer, and it pops up, no such book, or whatever the screen is, I don't have to stop with that. I can actually contact you in the library and say, it shows that you don't have the book in the Noble system at all, but can you pursue it further? And the answer is yes, we will. We'll try.
Yeah, please give us a call.
I would say for many things, the library is a don't just stop there outlet.
Right.
We will go the mile. We love our detective work on research questions.
I like this one because people out there, they're stumped for some question. They wonder about the happiest nation on earth. I wonder what the happiest nation on earth is. And there's a survey and there's a list. And it actually updates each year, though. They can call a library and you would pursue that for them. They don't have to do the research themselves. They could ask the questions. Say, have you got a list or can you tell me happiest nations on earth? Right?
Absolutely.
Or whatever
Everything
research
from
question.
a research question, even to a community question. Where would I go to search for a job? We are also a vital hub of the community in terms of services and resources. So we don't stop at just books anymore, that's for sure.
Local history.
Oh,
very
local history,
important.
yeah.
On another angle, if I was just, especially as we coast into summer, spring or summer, better weather, want a beach book, want something to read, but we know in general that who knows better what books are excellent to read, well written and reader friendly than a librarian. So I come in and I say, do you have any idea, any staff picks or something? The answer is yes, all the time, right? There's even a shelf of staff picks or recommended books. So tell us about that. I think both of you are prepared for that answer.
And also, if we have time or if you don't mind, I did a little research for, if I was going to do a presentation of my own today, of the most popular books currently being read in England. And I was going to throw a couple of titles at you once you've done your presentation to see, are these the same books that might be on your list of bestsellers or recommendations for reading?
Sure.
But I'm fascinated to see what you're going to come up with.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Start with staff picks.
So staff picks. So I help co-run social media, and we do this thing called Staff Pick Friday, where we kind of survey our local librarians and members of the community, and we go, what book do you recommend? So we have a few here. One of them that has been quite popular lately is The Spare Room by Andrea Botts. That was recommended by our children's library assistant, Jess. And we do this thing called 3 words to describe the book.
Can you, when you do this, tell people if it's a children's or an adult book?
Yes.
And if it's a fiction or nonfiction?
Yes. So The Spare Room is a fiction mystery book that is an adult book, and 3 words to describe it are scandalous, atmospheric, and suspenseful. Good for a Girl, A Woman Running in a Man's World by Lauren Flessman. That was recommended by a local history librarian, Julie. And that is also an adult fiction book. And 3 words to describe it are daring, raw, and groundbreaking. Do you have any that you want to read off from that pick?
Sure. Let's see. Well, I love to read teen material. I love to read young adult books. So one of my recommendations was by an author named Kelly Yang. It's called Parachute. It's powerful, it's eye-opening, it's actually really important. I love young adult books because they really get to the heart of the matter, and you can have a great conversation. I love that.
I think my current recommendation right now is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare.
Oh, yeah.
It's a wonderful book. I'm about halfway through it. Really great world building and just the language that they use. And I really like the way that she handles certain situations, you know. I find in a lot of books, sometimes some points are drawn out too much and other points aren't touched on enough. And I feel like she has a really nice balance of touching on the important and the unimportant equally to really build that world, but also not drown you out in the small, meaningless details.
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about what we're each reading?
Yes, of
Okay, so I'm currently reading Class by Stephanie Land. It's a follow-up to Maid. It has to do with poverty, also motherhood, and sort of higher education barriers. So that's really interesting. Can we hear from John? I'd love to hear from everybody.
I am going to be taking you to a probably very remote place that most of you probably won't have too much direct connection with or knowledge of. And it goes back to my own extended period of time as a Peace Corps volunteer in a Central American country called Guatemala, which has a lot of relevance here in Gloucester with the increased population component of Guatemalan immigrants here who have settled here in Gloucester and made it their community. So it's very relevant for me. And in particular, I have an ongoing commitment with the country of my extended period of service in making available resources to people who have had no access to their own history and their background. Guatemala is a very, very segregated country in the extent that a lot of people who don't belong to a privileged class can have knowledge and experience like exposure to libraries and resources. So I use archival materials that I can make available to them through transcription of their 16th century history, so they can learn that their forefathers did fight for their rights and tried to do everything they could against a pervasive system that had enslaved them and demeaned them. So this is my contribution. So I'm interested in a book that's called Sobre los Indios de Guatemala, concerning the Guatemalan natives, and it occupies me at this time. But I really concentrate on it because, as I say, it's part of an ongoing commitment that I have devoted myself and my life to. And this is a way I can continue to further the objectives of it.
Oh, John, your inspiration, your dedication, you put so much into it. And one day I was sitting, this was two summers ago, I was sitting in the library and they were rearranging a few things, and there was a display of some pictures, and it was next to the newspapers where it normally isn't. And I looked up, and there was a picture from that was posted of John, and it was in the picture he was receiving an award from I believe the people of Guatemala for your services.
I had gotten some, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there I was sitting right next to this picture, and then I read it. I said, "Oh my God!" Look. So the information that you can get from just being in a library, and when I was younger, the degree for librarians was library science, a degree in library science. But now it's called, more often than not, information sciences, because there's so much information that you can get. I was going to, as I mentioned, I'm going to throw out like 5 titles. If you don't know them, that's fine. But these are some of the bestsellers in London, in England right now, and Scotland also. And the #1 bestseller right now, and as soon as I see the title, I'm sure people will understand why, it's called Harry by Prince Harry. Is that a book that's popular in the library?
Appeal.
Popular appeal.
Yeah.
Hands down.
So that's the number one book. Lessons in Chemistry is also, I believe, in the top 5. But there were 2 books in the top 5 that I'd never heard of. They go under the rubric of the Thursday Night Crime Club, and it's about it's a detective series, and they are the most popular. They're in the top 5 in England and Scotland. And I looked them up, and I don't think we have them, but I could be mistaken. But anyways, I'd never heard of them before. And the other top seller was a cookbook.
That is cool.
But I had not heard of this. It was called the Nom, capital N, capital O, capital M, cookbook. And it supposedly involves the latest in scientific ways of improving your diet. But again, I hadn't heard of that. Then the other book, and I hope you can help me out on this because I wrote down the name. Lately, and Wayne actually had a program about this, I believe, about sort of women in romances being sort of a more literary kind of romance. Romanticy. And one of them was, it's a sequel, Colleen
Hoover?
Yes.
Oh, hot.
Really? So that's in the top 5 also.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And then one other, and this is nonfiction, and this ties in with the program that I did last time I was here, based on the book Empire by Paul Strathern. And he talks about 10 empires in the past and what they have to offer us today. And one of them was about how the Medici family and the Borgia family influenced the Renaissance, not just in Italy, but in Northern Europe. And I said I would bring in some books. And so I'm just going to show these to the audience because I said I would do that.
Yeah.
One is the Borgias, The Hidden History by Meyer. And
Take time with it and let it be shown clearly to the audience. Then go again with the title.
The Borgias, The Hidden History by G.J. Meyer.
These are people that poison each other. Or
Yes, they
And
have
one
quite a
was
history.
Pope.
And illegitimate children of popes and so forth. But the great English historian, this now is a reprint. It's the 2nd edition, and it's come out with a new introduction, and it's now, after more than 30 years, a bestseller again in England, and it's a nonfiction. Harold Acton, the great British historian, Harold Acton, and The Last Medici. And here on the cover, with their fanciful hairdos, Charles I and his wife. So that's sort of tying with last week. But it ties in this week because it's actually a bestseller again, which I did not know.
Right.
Good history never ages.
Right.
Well, you
I want you both, please, to respond, welcome to as well as retiree, to what Raymond was saying about these popular ones in England, not necessarily available or the same as popular here. But you both reacted when he said the name Colleen.
Colleen Hoover.
You didn't need the last name, right? Somebody comes to the desk, I want Colleen, you can fill in the sentence.
You deal regularly with this.
As Meg was saying,
Oh, I was going to say Lessons in Chemistry.
Yeah.
Straight away, that's the #1 circulating title for
Yes.
Sawyer Free Library.
Right now.
Right
The
now.
most improbable
And-
title.
well, it's the most circulated, but not the one with the most holds on it right now.
And what is that?
I'm gonna let you guys guess. It's a book that we haven't seen a lot, and now all of a sudden, overnight, must have been talked on like Oprah or something. It is so many holds in the system. Any ideas?
Give us a
Some
hint.
current
2 words.
event.
2 words.
2 words.
Some current event.
It's a newest release from a very popular author.
When you said 2 boys, there is that new biography by Ron Howard and his brother growing up.
Oh, okay.
But that's not it,
2
obviously.
words.
2 words.
2 words. It's The Women
The
by
women.
Kristen Hanna.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's getting the most holds right now. And the #2 who's getting the most holds is the Heaven and Earth grocery store.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that is hot, hot, hot. Can't keep it. Also can't keep Palm Lake
Oh my God.
and Patchett's.
With its weight in gold.
So how does the library decide how many books, or how many copies of a particular title should they get? Because sometimes demand is just very current, and then once that, let's say 5 or 10 people read it, then after a while it's just going to sit on the shelf, so you can't have 10 copies sitting on the shelf.
Which
But at the
is
same-
what happened when I was there. They would get 8 to 10 copies, and then when the interest declined, there they would sit and
So,
occupy space and no longer have appeal.
right, and space is
Very
one of our prime, right?
Yes.
We are, since we are in a temporary location and
Yeah.
renovating, we have to be very mindful of space right
Very
now.
difficult.
So our team of librarians, having studied library and information science, do a great job of selecting materials. We have express books, a whole section of those. Those are our hottest titles. And the express books circulate
for
for
2 weeks?
for 1 week.
Oh.
Oh, just one. Just one. And it comes with a special bookmark saying express collection.
And no
just 1
renewals?
week, right? Because it's so hot, it's got to come back and it'll go out again, no doubt about it. Now we also have, so that's where we would have one copy of something like The Women, and then we also would have another copy on our new bookshelf. Now those would go out for 2 weeks, but it's hard to get a hold of those.
One other book I wanted to mention is, again, I was a little bit aware of this. I knew at least that it existed, but one of the top books in England is Until August, the last unpublished novel of Gabriel Marquez, 100 años de soledad, 100 years of solitude. And it has been published in England now, and so it is a bestseller in England, but it's not yet been published. It was due to be published in February here. So there are some pre-publication copies, but it hasn't really been distributed yet. Is that a book maybe that anyone has asked for until August?
That book was an unpublished, unfinished work
Yes.
of his that was, I think, promoted by his son.
His son.
Who were trying to take advantage of his fame as an author. And there's been a lot of controversy as to whether this is something that's acceptable.
Yes.
Because he had not done.
No, he didn't, and he did not want it published.
No, didn't want it
However,
published.
they did find a complete, and I just read this, that they found there was actually a completed manuscript.
Oh.
So his sons decided that they would go against his wishes and publish it since it was completed. And it's 767 pages.
Wow.
And it's one of the books that they can't keep on the shelves apparently in England, but it hasn't hit America yet.
Well, so many times these books come to us by way of recommendation, right? But I would say one thing that the Sawyer Free Library in Gloucester does really well is displays. So if you walk in, you can find things on sustainability for Women's History Month, Black History Month.
Very, very well done.
And this is, I think, a fun one. For the month, in the month of February, we had a special display called Blind Date with a Book.
Yes.
Now, Sam went ahead and wrapped each of these books
They were covered
in brown paper,
I love it.
and then just wrote on the outside just a teaser.
A teaser.
Yeah.
So we didn't even print the receipt for folks when they checked it out, because that would have given away
No
the title,
idea. No
right?
idea what
But those went like hotcakes.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun. So we like to play around
That's a
too. You
great
might see a
idea.
display of cat books.
And I
You
love
never
that
know.
they're in brown paper
Yeah.
wrappings,
Yeah.
because anything can be in a brown paper bag,
Yeah.
And the Ipswich Library did that also.
Oh, good.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
That's a absolute attestation of the confidence people have in a librarian of being a good source, something that is
And-
worth taking time with. It really is.
Some libraries apparently on the North Shore, probably elsewhere as well, are doing displays on female authors. Is that something that you might do, or do you have that?
You have
We,
done that.
we currently have one
Yeah,
for
you
Women's
do.
History Month.
Yes.
So not only female authors and sharing their own voices, but also women's history,
Right.
women's history and culture, not just in North America, but really globally. So celebrating voices and stories and histories.
And one display which I came across, and actually it was based on a recommendation, I believe, of the New York Times, from the New York Times, which was the 5 most recent female winners of either the Pulitzer Prize or the Booker Prize.
I
England.
like that. We should take
We
note.
should.
I see a display in the works already.
Excuse me. And one of them is they mentioned the title "March" by Geraldine Brooks, and I did a presentation on Caleb's Crossing before for Wayne's book group, and so there are some wonderful titles. Olive Kittredge by Elizabeth Strout is another one, which won the Pulitzer Prize.
Geraldine Brooks also wrote Horse,
Horse, that's your most recent one,
right?
yes,
Which we
yes.
have not been able to keep on the shelves.
I bet.
Any copies that we have of that. And the nice thing is, even if we don't have a copy, like Connor was saying earlier, we borrow
You can
from
get it.
so many different libraries. We have a designated hold shelf that folks can come and get items from. So.
What about a sort of like, I'm going to use the term hardcore, but really literary books that are more academic, but nonetheless become bestsellers. Are that something that the library has, or is there a bestseller currently that might be more, really researched and like a nonfiction book?
A lot of biographies go out. All the 920s are always coming in, out, in, out, in, out. Really popular one, as you mentioned, was Prince Harry's one. There's a recent one with,
Certainly historians. I mean, like our friend Wayne over here. Definitely. I mean, nonfiction is still quite hot. Cookbooks. We have a lot of cookbooks.
Yes.
I think it's really cool that was one of the top.
Top 5, and I had never heard of this NOM, capital NOM, and it's like in the top 5 apparently,
Right.
and but apparently I'm sure it will come over here because, as you say, cookbooks are so popular, and I remember being turned on to that when I think actually I was in college, and I used to see bestsellers and they were cookbooks, and I said, what is this? Cookbooks aren't really books, but they are.
Oh, but they are, and
They're
book groups,
instructions.
right? Book groups, and
Yeah.
it's really a way
And a
to
lot more.
bring community together
Yeah.
and celebrate around food and stories and culture.
You can recreate cultures.
I would think, yes, you would
Recreate
know a lot
cultures
about
through
that.
Yeah.
You mentioned
Has that capacity, that power.
book groups and book clubs. So is that something that maybe is on hold more now because there isn't much space for these? But do you have any, or do you have one that might be online or something?
So we have currently the on hold. There is talks about that possibly being something that does happen again, but currently in the limited space they are on hold. But we do have these wonderful book bags that have very popular titles, and you can check out the bag with like 10 copies of a book and that list of questions, so you can do a little book group with your friends. We don't have those in our current building. We have them at Saunders House, which is our office building.
Okay.
But if you put them on hold to ask us for them, we can get those for
That's
you.
a great idea.
Actually, what's really fun with that is it comes with a little gift card to a local shop. And so if you want to have a little treat, you can check out that book bag. Virtual author talks are also really very popular. We do 3 a month, and that's a nice way to also make sure that we're hearing voices from all across the world, really.
Yeah, wonderful presentations.
Programming for children.
Yeah, there's something for
teens.
everybody.
There
you
is
know. Yeah,
something
it's
for
wonderful.
everybody.
Yeah.
I'll
Very
segue
impressive.
into what I was going to bring today, what I have brought today, from what Megan just said about authors or authors online or just hearing authors talk or readings. That's been a very popular part of your library through the years. In my instance, I belong to a group I've spoken of before called BIO, B-I-O, which is a Biographers International group, mostly Americans, but it's open to anybody in the world to join. And BIO meets annually, and in an instance when they pre-COVID that they were meeting in person, I went all the way to Washington D.C. Very first time, and saw and heard many biographers whom I knew and had seen on TV and all that stuff. And then there was this fellow who came in speaking that I'd never heard of, and yet he was a Pulitzer Prize winner. And of course, he was known by everybody in the room but me. But this particular book that I'm going to recommend is example of your. This is I got it from the Sawyer Free Library. In fact, it was delivered to my house, and it's from Salem Public Library. That's the connection, the way you do it. And it's called the Clinton Tapes, about Bill Clinton. And the author that I heard was Taylor Branch. He's down here. It says Pulitzer Prize winning author. So Taylor Branch gave us the inside story behind his writing of this book. And I don't know if you've heard it or are aware, but when Bill Clinton was in the White House, he decided to do two things at the same time. Mostly he was president of the United States. Well, I suppose he did three things, counting Monica, but he was mostly president of the United States, and then a little part of his week was involved in history. In other words, he was concurrently thinking in his head about how history would view his administration and how he would write his memoirs and what it would be. So he decided that his friend, Taylor Branch, and this is the part that we learned firsthand from him when he spoke to us, Taylor Branch and Bill Clinton were in their early 20s in the 1972 campaign for, I think it was the McGovern campaign, it was 1972. They were in this president, they were staffers. They would advance people to come in and build up the attendance at rallies and publicize and meet with the newspaper people and do things to do, help the candidate. That was both Bill Clinton and Taylor Branch. And they would meet, these two being friends, they would meet in the restaurant, have coffee at the beginning of the day, and sort of Taylor Branch is ready to talk about the box scores and the newspaper of the baseball game and stuff. Not Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was all about tonight's seating arrangements in the ballroom that's going to take place and who's going to be next to who, and because some Democrats didn't get along with other Democrats, but good, and they put them together. And all this stuff is happening, and Taylor Branch is speaking with Bill Clinton. It's all trivia. That's garbage. And Bill's saying, "No, it's the most fascinating thing." And they were arguing this way as friends at the time. And basically, Bill Clinton had some kind of a quote. I won't be able to be verbatim, but Taylor Branch said it. Something like this to Taylor Branch: if you don't see the magic in seating arrangements, you don't want to be in politics. And this is the degree of details that he has to interest himself in and be fascinated by organizing, making happen. So anyway, they were 20 years apart. Taylor Branch was not a politician, did not like it, after all. Became an author in his own right, a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer and everything else. And when Bill Clinton was elected to the presidency, an interview showed up in the newspaper. It says, "I've lost touch with friends." I can't imitate his voice, but he was always in that plaintive tone. So, "I've lost touch with friends." And one of the friends that he mentioned was Taylor Branch, that he hadn't heard from in a while, 20 years. So Taylor Branch then contacted him and says, "Hi, how are you, boy?" Didn't expect anything. Bill Clinton said, "I want you. Come to the White House." It was very early in his administration. And he explained his problem. he felt that he wouldn't have the real-time thoughts and feelings as things happen the way you would once the administration is over and you're thinking and you're looking back and you reconstruct things.
Yeah.
You retrospect in a different way. It's not what he wanted. He wanted that real-time feeling of unresolved tension that wasn't yet certain which way it would go, whether this was important or this was unimportant. And you always mix up those things in life. And so he basically said, I want you to come and meet me weekly, and we'll talk about the events of the week in a candid way. Naturally, it won't be for the newspaper. Naturally, you keep it secret. Naturally, even the fact that it's going on shouldn't be reported. And all of this, Taylor Branch agreed to. So I don't know if you know this, but there was a man coming to the White House each week, Taylor Branch, to speak for hours. Bill Clinton decided whether it was 1 hour, 2 hours, or 5 hours, that kind of thing. But he tape recorded the meetings, the interviews. Sometimes they were interrupted by phone calls, real time. Senator Reid is on the phone. Okay, keep the tape, okay, because what I'm doing is real time. That's okay. He didn't mind because it was, again, private, just as if he was tape recording himself. Because these tapes were given to him. Taylor Branch didn't take them home. These tapes were put into where they were? In his sock drawer. Cool.
That's the new archive.
The idea was if he put them in the office or he put them in, become official records or government controlled and everything, what's in his sock drawer? And it's just his own private.
I thought you were going to tell us they were found at Mar-a-Lago.
Oh!
No! That'd be a horse of a different color.
They would have been flushed down the toilet.
So he gets these, compiles this enormous record of numbers of tapes for Bill Clinton. But he also, on his own, described to us, so he could write a book of this mass. He went home in his car with a tape recorder, recording as he remembered what they had talked about, and he set into the tape for his own book, for his own purposes, what they had been talking about. So he kind of had two interviews at the same time. So this book is compiled. It says the Clinton tape, but perhaps you could view it as the Branch tape, because it would have looked peculiar, I'm sure, if you were riding behind him, the man talking to himself. But he was talking to his tape recorder for a book that he was eventually going to write.
There's some criticism about this approach, is there not, about that not necessarily everything that he said was taped isn't. He's uses the tapes, but then he goes back and remembers based on what the tapes say. But then it's no longer a record of the Clinton years or what they said or whatever, but rather what he's thinking about them. So it's gotten some negative press because of that. What do you think?
The criticism I've seen is more because of Bill Clinton's memoirs being abusive of the tapes that he had in his sock drawer. Depending on, he was editing eventually and also but he cherry picked the tape.
Yes.
Tape. That's what I've seen. And that's, who knows, because I didn't listen to all the tapes. I don't know.
I was going to ask you, that's a long book.
Did you
read the whole thing?
You have to, absolutely not. This is, no, you have to be really fascinated by seating arrangements and everything like that if you really wanted to read all it. But some people out there, if you wanted to just, I wonder what this, some of you were born after this. Yes. I wonder what the Clinton years were like compared to now, and the problems they were dealing with and how they tried to solve them, successfully or not.
I think what stood out mostly were the scandals, I think.
Unfortunately, I think
that's what I think the lasting
I kind of
impact.
mentioned it to the beginning because I thought that's probably about all that people know or remember.
And associated with both, Mr. and Mrs.
And I will also remember it personally because he apologized to Guatemala for the influence that the United States had done to contribute to the terrible conditions of life down there with our previous meddling with Guatemala. And yeah, that I will. That's what because of my own background.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's in here, but you'll be the next one to.
And Senator Edwards, who ran for the presidency and was, of course, also associated with scandal, but he said the same thing. He actually, in one of his campaign stops, apologized because there was talk that Obama was going to appoint him as Secretary of State, and he said one of the things he would do would be to apologize to some of the nations. He didn't mention Guatemala, but he mentioned in Latin America, and that they were due an apology. I wanted to ask Wayne. You asked us about one book that we're currently reading. So I'm going to ask you, looking at the size of this book, have you read Oppenheimer, that huge book that you took out from the library again? Tell us something about Oppenheimer, which just won several Oscars.
It did win it won the Oscar. It's a huge epic.
You've got to understand, in common with, I think, 15 other people in Gloucester, I looked up in the library the Noble System and wanted to get the movie. I wanted to see the movie. And it didn't have the movie.
Have a long way.
It had the same name, Oppenheimer, and it had by Kai Bird, who's the great biographer, whose book was, the movie's based on this book. So I said, well, if I can't get the movie, the book's available, and it was. I asked for the book, so I got it for free. And when you get something free, probably you don't value it so much. So I was reading parts of it and found it. I think they must have had an exciting movie in there somewhere. Yeah. They edited it, they pared it down and made it more concise and dramatic than the book, because the book is dense reading. But somebody who was interested in it was well written, well researched, but it was also for my purposes slow. And I think had it been cut down, had the book been cut down to half, something in the order of the movie's kind of length or proportion, I think I would have read it all the way through. Compelling, it would have been compelling to me. But as it was too much of a good thing. So, I mean, you could only eat so much oatmeal.
You also recently read another huge tome, the Da Vinci book. How was that?
That was easier going. Walter Isaacson, whom you must have, Colleen Hoover has her following.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But also Walter Isaacson has some following among people in Gloucester and Cape Ann who want to read about Benjamin Franklin or Leonardo da Vinci, or a number of others that he's written about.
Historical
anyone, he has the Midas touch. Any one of those figures he can electrify and make vivid. And he's very animated kind of prose. So I liked him. And yes, you can't go wrong. I've told people before, you can't go wrong taking a book out that's written by Walter Isaacson.
And I mentioned that because, and maybe some of you know, that he was doing research on Oppenheimer. He wanted to write a book on Oppenheimer. And then he heard that there was already one in the works that was taking years of research to get done. And so he decided, not to pursue that. And what was the name of that book? I'm drawing a blank right now, the book on Oppenheimer. American... Prometheus. I love that title. That title.
I'm really a gifted man to write that title just by itself. If I wrote nothing else but that title, I think it was,
be up
easy.
there.
Well, I'd be interested in some of these seating arrangements, because to me, that speaks to relationships too. But relationships, and at Sawyer Free, we're not going to tell you where to sit. We will not give you a seating assignment. There are plenty of spaces for everyone, but what we will do is help you cultivate relationships with community members.
And in Dutch, the supposedly authorized biography of Ronald Reagan, in that he talks about Nancy Reagan was the self-appointed and self-anointed seating chart heiress to, every seating plan had
Very
to be approved by her.
cultivated and carefully.
And
worked
and
through
where they could sit, and where they couldn't sit.
advantageous.
Well, I've got a
seating.
story for you about seating arrangements, if you want to call it that.
Advantageous seating.
Edmund Morris, you're talking about the
Yes,
book
yes.
Dutch. Edmund Morris was the authorized biographer of Ronald Reagan and controversial biographer. And Edmund Morris and his wife spoke at this same conference that Taylor Branch did. And he told a story I've never seen in print and doubt that they ever did put it in print. When they were interviewing and trying to put together a biography of Claire Booth Luce. Again, a name that you have to have explained because it goes back. Claire Booth Luce was the wife of the Time magazine guy, and also divorced him, I think. But she was a congresswoman, etc., and a prominent person for the 1940 wartime effort in 1950s. And they wanted to, a strong woman. You got to write a biography of a strong woman. So they got together and wrote this. But the interview was with Claire Booth Luce in her house. She was no longer really getting out much socially. She was older. I don't remember what age they said at the time. I think something like 80. And they're interviewing her, and she was getting tired. So she said, let's remove ourselves from the parlor or whatever to the bedroom. So they go to the bedroom, and she's in her bed, resting, and talking, doing the interview with them. I can't hear you too well, she says first to the wife. So the wife is in bed on one side of her, and they're interviewing still. And then the same happens with the husband. So then suddenly the three of them, seating arrangements, there's three of them in bed. On each side of Claire Booth Luce is Edmund Morris and his wife. The interviewers, the biographers of this is a story they told to us. I think it was a really remarkable way of looking at real life, the way biographers research things sometimes to a fault. Now we're almost to the last minute, and I'd like to go around the table. Last thoughts, last words, tips that you each may have.
Yeah, just something that we want to talk about real fast at the library. We have an upcoming event called Zine Fest, April 27th, where you come in, and zine is a short word for like magazine, or like it's a small circulation item that you can print in the library. If you come and make it, we can put it on display and then print it there. And we're going to be making them, and it's going to be a larger, fun event. Again, it's going to be April 27th, and sustainability.
Yes, Sustainability Reading Challenge underway. Anyone who participates and reads a couple books and shares with us the names of those books will be entered to win a $25 Holy Cow gift card.
Holy cow!
Holy cow!
Holy cow!
The library is an essential and greatly, greatly respected community treasure that should be supported, should be patronized, and made full use of, because it is a resource, incredible opportunity, and many, many returns for the time put into it. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, great minds think alike. I was going to say the same thing, John, and I wanted to thank you both for coming. I think I've really enjoyed this discussion today.
Thank you for having us.
And I also wanted to just end with one. Oh, we're done.
Thank you, Raymond. Last word. See you next time. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tuolla Lontoossa Jennin mä kohtasin. Halo väki, ho. Hän on neitosten joukossa kaunihin. Halo väki, ho. Suukon kirsikka